On her 18th birthday, Jessica Morgan expected a slice of cake and maybe a small gift. Instead, her parents tossed her a packed duffel bag and said she was no longer their responsibility. No tears, no begging. She walked into the cold night, silent, steady, making one vow in her heart to destroy everything they ever built. Stick with me while she shares her story. And if it moves you, hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Jessica Morgan had always believed birthdays were supposed to be special. Maybe a slice of cake, a thoughtful gift, or at the very least, a kind word. But on the morning of her 18th birthday, all she got was betrayal. Her mother didn't even meet her eyes when she delivered the blow. "You're 18 now, Jess. Time to take care of yourself." Her father stood nearby with his arms folded, his expression stony, as if waiting for her to thank them for the years they'd raised her. There was no warning, no warm goodbye, just a packed duffel bag by the door, and a silence that cut deeper than any insult. Jessica didn't cry. She didn't argue. She stood in the center of the living room, the same room where she had folded grocery bags, counted receipts, and fallen asleep after closing shifts at Morgan's Market, and looked at the people who raised her like she was a burden they'd finally found the courage to discard. For 6 years, she had been the backbone of their business, while her older brother Josh came and went as he pleased, chasing parties, flunking out of classes, and somehow always getting a second chance. Jessica had scrubbed floors, stocked shelves, and manned the register. Rain or shine, school night or not, she was their unpaid laborer, hidden in plain sight. And now, just like that, she was out. She picked up her duffel bag without a word and stepped into the freezing February air. $37 in her pocket, a prepaid phone with no contacts left who truly cared. The street was quiet, and so was she. But deep inside, a fire had started, slow and steady, fueled by every hour she worked for free, every birthday forgotten, every time she was made to feel like less. Jessica didn't have a plan that first night, but she had resolve. They had discarded her like garbage, convinced she would disappear into the system, struggle, fail, maybe come crawling back, begging for scraps. But that wasn't who Jessica Morgan was. She didn't plan to survive. She planned to destroy. She would take everything they valued, their business, their reputation, their comfort, and crush it beneath her feet. She would use the skills they forced her to learn, the long nights they made her work, the cruelty they coated in tough love, and flip it all against them. They had spent years using her. They thought they'd thrown her away. But Jessica Morgan wasn't gone. She was just getting started. Morgan's Market had always been her parents' pride, a cornerstone of the community, a family-run business with a fake smile plastered over every rotten corner. Jessica knew the truth behind that smile. She had lived it. After they kicked her out, she didn't spiral. She observed, she remembered, and she started gathering evidence. Late at night, she would walk past the store, phone in hand, snapping photos of broken refrigerators leaking onto stained floors. She still had access to an old email chain from when she worked the register, invoices that didn't match inventory, delivery dates that were clearly forged. She knew the codes they used to hide expired goods behind new labels. It was all still happening, worse than before. Jessica submitted her first anonymous tip to the health department with a folder full of dated photos, screenshots, and product logs. A week later, the store was swarmed by inspectors in blue gloves and grim expressions. What followed was chaos. They were fined thousands for expired food, mold in storage coolers, and mislabeling frozen meat. The local paper ran a short piece about it, tucked in between school announcements and a coupon spread. But it was enough. Morgan's Market had to close for renovations. Customers stopped coming, but Jessica wasn't finished. While they scrambled to clean up their mess, she combed through the old receipts they used to hand her in stacks to file. She cross-referenced totals, noticed discrepancies in reported revenue versus inventory bought. She built a spreadsheet that painted a clear picture. Tax fraud. She sent it to the IRS with a detailed cover letter, anonymously of course. 3 months later, another letter arrived at Morgan's Market. This time, it wasn't about expired produce. It was about unpaid taxes, falsified reports, and a suspended business license pending investigation. Jessica watched from across the street as her father tore the letter in half, then sat down on the curb, his head in his hands. Her mother paced inside the darkened store, phone pressed to her ear, shouting at someone, anyone, who might still help. No one did. Their store was their life, and Jessica had become its death sentence. Jessica had always been the invisible one, the girl behind the register, the unpaid daughter no one thanked. But invisibility had its perks. People forgot she was in the room, forgot she heard everything, including the names of every supplier Morgan's Market ever used. Months after the IRS shut the store down, her parents scraped together just enough to reopen. No ads, no grand announcement, just flickering lights and half-stocked shelves. They thought they were recovering. They had no idea Jessica was already 2 steps ahead. Using a fake name and a polished online identity, Jessica reached out to their old suppliers. She claimed to represent a new up-and-coming grocery startup in town, one ready to place consistent, large orders. Money up front, clean branding, a fresh future. Most of them didn't recognize her name or her voice. Some even asked if her company was related to Morgan's Market. She smiled through the phone and said no, not at all. She registered a shell company and started underbidding her parents on every essential item: milk, bread, produce, snacks, even paper towels. Her offers were clean and efficient, with better delivery timing and no history of late payments or health code violations. In the cutthroat world of small business supply, loyalty meant nothing compared to efficiency and cash. Slowly, Morgan's Market started to bleed. Their shelves, once overflowing, began to go bare. Customers would wander in, searching for basic items, only to walk back out empty-handed. Rumors started flying. Maybe the store was failing. Maybe the owners had lost their touch. And Jessica didn't let those whispers fade. She reached out to a small-town blog known for posting community exposés and sent them a carefully curated folder. Inside were photos from her teenage years, moldy storerooms, texts from her mum demanding she skip school to clean, pay stubs that showed $0 for hours worked. She detailed her years of unpaid labor and how the owners forced employees to work through illness, skipped safety trainings, and bullied cashiers into silence. The blog ran the story under the headline, "The Rotten Core of Morgan's Market, a former insider speaks out." It went viral. Comments flooded in. Former employees came forward with similar stories. Customers started boycotting the store, posting photos of empty shelves with captions like, "Glad to see Karma doing inventory." Her parents tried to fight back, claiming the post was slander, but it was too late. The damage was done. Their suppliers had moved on. Their customers had vanished. Their reputation was gone. Jessica never appeared publicly. She let the town believe it was just another whistleblower. Meanwhile, she watched the chaos unfold from her apartment window, sipping coffee and reading the comment threads with quiet satisfaction. They thought she was dumb, powerless, erased, but she was never gone. She had just pulled the rug out from under them, and they were still falling. Jessica had learned early that power didn't always come from shouting. Sometimes it came from listening in the right rooms. So when she heard the local Chamber of Commerce was looking for volunteers, she signed up. She wore a blazer, kept her hair neat, and introduced herself as Jess Monroe, young, professional, eager to help small businesses thrive. No one suspected a thing. She took notes at meetings, helped with grant applications, and quietly collected information. Within weeks, she had access to a database of businesses who'd applied for government contracts and minority-owned business grants. That's when she found it, her parents' submission. On the forms, they had falsely identified her mother as Native American, hoping to qualify for special funding. Jessica remembered the conversation from years ago, her mum half joking about how having a little Cherokee somewhere down the line might come in handy one day. Apparently, they'd followed through. She took screenshots, downloaded documents, and compiled a clean packet of evidence. Then she sent it anonymously to the state's Business Integrity Unit. 3 weeks later, Morgan's Market lost its biggest supplier contract. The grant money dried up. A formal investigation was launched, and creditors started circling like vultures. Jessica's parents didn't know who had exposed them, but they felt the noose tighten. Bills stacked up, loans defaulted, and then, like clockwork, they reached out to her. She hadn't heard her father's voice in nearly a year. He left a voicemail saying they were going through a rough patch and asking if she might consider helping, just a small loan to keep the store afloat. Her mother followed up with an email, trying to play nice, calling her sweetheart, like they hadn't dumped her on the street with nothing but a duffel bag. Jessica didn't reply. Instead, she purchased the store's debt from a third-party collector, a silent transaction under her company's name. 2 weeks later, her parents received a foreclosure notice with one name listed at the bottom, Jessica Morgan. They showed up at her office, desperate, confused, begging for mercy. She looked them in the eye, smiled calmly, and said, "Funny, I remember begging too." Then she closed the door in their faces. When Jessica left home, with nothing but $37 and a prepaid phone, her parents assumed she'd fail. They figured she'd come crawling back, that the world would break her. But Jessica had no intention of crawling. She had plans. She picked up 3 jobs, waitressing during the day, working at a 24-hour gas station at night, and freelance data entry in between. Her feet ached, her eyes burned, and sleep became a luxury she rationed. But each paycheck went straight into savings. Every tip counted. Every hour mattered. While working at the gas station, she noticed something. People hated grocery shopping. They complained about long lines, about Morgan's Market always running out of things, about how there had to be a better way. That's when it clicked. Jessica still had all the behind-the-scenes knowledge from working at the store. She knew the vendors, the pricing structures, the delivery schedules, everything. So she began developing a plan. With the little money she'd saved, she launched a basic website for local grocery delivery, focusing on customer service, fresh items, and reliability. But that was just the beginning. To fund the business, she started an online skincare line, using DIY recipes she'd developed back when she had to make do with kitchen ingredients. Her products, marketed as clean, affordable, and cruelty-free, gained traction fast. TikTok influencers picked them up, and orders started flooding in. She reinvested every dollar into building her delivery platform. Jessica hired a small team of part-timers, young people like her, who were tired of being overlooked. She used her social media skills to make her grocery service go viral. Sleek reels, humorous reviews, and behind-the-scenes stories of how her team delivered last-minute birthday cakes or tracked down rare snacks for sick kids. Customers loved it. They downloaded the app in droves. Soon, her service was delivering to nearly every household that once relied on Morgan's Market. Her prices were better, her team friendlier, and unlike her parents, she treated her staff like people. Morgan's Market couldn't keep up. Traffic dropped. Inventory sat untouched. Word spread that Jessica's delivery app was the better option. Faster, cheaper, kinder. Within a year, her parents were forced to shutter the store, quietly taking down the family-owned since 1992 sign. Jessica didn't gloat. She waited. Then she saw the listing. The storefront was for sale. She made an offer, just above market value, and signed the papers in a conference room with her lawyer present. 2 weeks later, she walked into the same space where her childhood had been spent stocking dusty shelves and scrubbing floors. But now, it was hers. She hung a new sign above the door. Morgan Essentials. Community first. They hadn't just underestimated her. They'd built the stage for her victory. While Jessica was building something real, her older brother Josh, the so-called golden child, was busy playing pretend. After years of coasting on praise and excuses, he decided he was a crypto genius. He convinced their parents to let him modernize Morgan's Market by investing in blockchain logistics and digital coin partnerships. None of it made sense, but her parents ate it up. They let him funnel tens of thousands into shady crypto platforms. He promised huge returns. Instead, they got disappearing balances and frozen assets. Jessica found out by accident. A mutual acquaintance sent her a screenshot of Josh bragging in a private Discord group, laughing about how he used the family business as his personal crypto playground. The messages were clear. Josh had misused company funds, doctored financial records, and lied about investment performance. Jessica saved every screenshot. She could have stayed quiet, but she remembered all the nights she scrubbed floors while Josh played Xbox, all the times he got praise for doing nothing while she was invisible. She wasn't going to let him drag anyone else down. She created an anonymous tip line and forwarded everything to local business blogs and financial watchdogs. The story broke. Family-owned market gambled away in crypto scam run by son. Her parents didn't go after Josh. They blamed Jessica. They showed up at her office, angry, shouting, demanding to know if she leaked the information. Her father accused her of trying to destroy the family. Her mother called her vindictive, ungrateful. Jessica stayed calm, her phone recording the entire meltdown from her purse. That night, she uploaded the footage to TikTok with the caption, "They threw me out. Now they blame me for their favorite son's mess." It went viral in hours. People flooded the comments in support of Jessica. News outlets picked it up. Sponsors quietly backed out of contracts with Morgan's Market. The bank, already nervous from the IRS investigation and failing revenue, finally pulled their line of credit. Jessica didn't respond to her family again. Josh disappeared. Her parents were left scrambling, angry and broke. The golden child had crashed their business. The disgrace? She was just getting started. Jessica hadn't planned to listen in. She'd only stopped by the bank to finalize paperwork for her growing skincare line when she overheard two familiar voices just around the corner. Her parents. Her mother was speaking in a sharp whisper, full of bitterness and exhaustion. "She was the mistake we couldn't return," her mum said. Unaware Jessica was standing close enough to hear every word. The sentence stopped her cold. She had always suspected the resentment, the way they looked at her like a burden instead of a daughter. But to hear it spoken aloud, it broke something open. Jessica didn't cry. She didn't confront them. She went home and turned on her camera. For the first time, she decided to tell the whole truth, not just to her close friends or to people who already knew the story. She wanted the world to hear it, raw and unfiltered. She uploaded a video to YouTube titled, "The Mistake They Couldn't Return, My Life as Free Labor." In it, Jessica calmly detailed how she had worked for Morgan's Market since she was 12, 7 days a week, no paycheck, no thanks. How she'd cleaned toilets while her brother skipped out. How she was thrown out at 18 with no warning, no savings, and no place to go. She spoke about the verbal jabs, the silent treatment, and the guilt her parents used to control her. Then she played the audio clip she had recorded at the bank. Her mother's voice echoed, "The mistake we couldn't return." Within hours, the video took off. Thousands of comments flooded in. People were furious, not just at the cruelty of her parents, but at how many had lived similar stories. Former employees of Morgan's Market began reaching out. Some shared emails, others provided photos, an unpaid wage record. One even recounted being forced to work through a miscarriage without support. Jessica compiled it all into a follow-up video. "You're not alone. They did it to all of us." The response was massive. Boycotts were organized. Google reviews tanked overnight. Local influencers encouraged people to shop elsewhere. Within 3 weeks, foot traffic at Morgan's Market plummeted. Her parents were forced to sell the store to cover their growing debts. But the story didn't end there. Jessica's subscribers, moved by her courage, launched a crowdfunding campaign to support her new business venture. Donations poured in. Support came from all over the country. She raised enough to expand her skincare line, launch a local co-op market, and hire staff who had once been mistreated by her parents. Jessica wasn't just surviving anymore, she was thriving, in full view of the people who once called her a mistake. She had become their living, breathing nightmare and the community's new hope. Jessica had learned the hard way never to trust blindly. Not family, not promises, and certainly not anyone who saw her as disposable. After years of betrayal and emotional scars, she decided it was time to reclaim not just her life, but the name they used to chain her to their dysfunction. She legally changed her name, Jessica Morgan, reborn. And with that new name, she launched a new business, Morgan Organics. The name was deliberate, clean, professional, familiar. She knew people would make the connection. Her parents had spent decades building Morgan's Market into a recognizable brand, and now their own reputation would become the shadow of her success. But Jessica did it differently. Her business was modern, ethical, and sustainable. Locally sourced produce, fair wages for employees, and full transparency. No moldy stock, no fake labels, no fake family image, just quality, service, and a fresh start. Customers assumed Morgan Organics was a rebrand of Morgan's Market. After all, the name was nearly identical, and Jessica's marketing made clever use of phrases like same name, new values, and a better kind of Morgan. The confusion wasn't an accident, it was strategy, and it worked. Foot traffic to her parents' store fell. People showed up at Morgan's Market asking why the shelves were so empty, why the customer service was so cold. Others just stopped showing up altogether. Meanwhile, Morgan Organics exploded. Online orders surged. Local press praised Jessica's commitment to sustainability and community hiring. Her story, once one of pain and abandonment, had become one of grit and triumph. Her parents, desperate to survive, slashed prices and liquidated stock. Jessica waited, then made her move. She offered to buy their remaining inventory for pennies on the dollar. They had no choice but to sell. On the day the final payment cleared, Jessica visited her parents' store one last time. It was quiet, the shelves stripped, the windows covered in "closing soon" signs. She stood at the front of the store she had once cleaned on her knees as a child. Then she walked to the back, flipped the breaker, and turned off the lights. She didn't steal their legacy. She transformed it and left them in the dark. 10 years had passed since Jessica Morgan was thrown out of her childhood home with nothing but a duffel bag and $37. In that time, she didn't just rebuild, she reinvented herself. From late-night side hustles and small online sales to building one of the fastest-growing e-commerce platforms in the region, Jessica had become a self-made tech millionaire. Her skincare brand, Morgan Organics, had expanded into logistics, delivery, and digital retail, and her name was now synonymous with ethical entrepreneurship. But she never forgot where it started. She returned to her hometown in a sleek black SUV, passing by the same cracked sidewalk she used to walk as a teenager. When she turned the corner onto Main Street, her eyes landed on a faded, dusty building that once housed Morgan's Market. The sign was gone. In its place, a weather-worn banner read, "Main Street Pawn and Cash." Her parents' legacy had rotted into a second-rate pawn shop. Jessica didn't gloat. She simply walked into the county clerk's office that afternoon and made a purchase, quietly, through one of her holding companies. The building was up for sale again. The owners were behind on taxes, a quick wire transfer later, and the deed was hers. But she didn't stop there. She reviewed the lease agreement and doubled the rent. It was well within her legal rights. Within 2 months, the struggling pawn shop defaulted. Jessica sent a formal eviction notice, signed with a name her parents hadn't seen in years. Her full legal name, Jessica E. Morgan, founder and CEO. They begged for an extension. She gave them 30 days. On the 31st day, the building was empty. A few rusted display cases, a broken register, and a sign half hanging off the window were all that remained of their broken dreams. But Jessica wasn't interested in revenge for revenge's sake. She had bigger plans. 2 months later, after extensive renovations, the space reopened as the Morgan Center for Youth Empowerment, a place for kids like her, the overlooked, the underestimated, the ones carrying too much responsibility and not enough hope. The center offered mentorship programs, free workshops, financial literacy classes, and startup grants for teens ready to build something of their own. Jessica stood outside on opening day, surrounded by laughter, cameras, and ribbon-cutting applause. She looked up at the building that once symbolized her pain and smiled. She didn't burn bridges. She bought the whole town and turned it into something better. Jessica Morgan had given 6 years of her life to Morgan's Market, shelving products, mopping dirty floors, managing the register, and even handling customer complaints while her parents treated her like a live-in servant. Not once did she receive a paycheck, no allowance, no gratitude, just expectation and control. After they kicked her out on her 18th birthday, she spent years rebuilding from nothing. But the injustice of those unpaid years stayed with her like a scar. One day, she decided it was time to get what she was owed. She began digging. Old emails, text messages, surveillance footage showing her working full shifts, copies of the store's employee schedules with her name listed. She had receipts from vendors she'd picked up personally, and even found a recorded voicemail from her dad, once saying, "You work for the family, not for a wage." That became key. Jessica took her growing file of evidence to a labor attorney. He was stunned by the documentation and told her she had a strong case. Though the statute of limitations would limit how much she could claim, what she did qualify for still added up. They filed a formal complaint and lawsuit. Her parents tried to brush it off, calling it family business and teenage chores, but the evidence told another story. When the case hit court, it didn't take long. Jessica won. A judge awarded her a 6-figure settlement for back wages, penalties, and damages. But Jessica didn't stop there. She told her story online. With a heartfelt video and detailed breakdown of what happened, she laid bare the years of exploitation and emotional abuse. The video went viral. Community groups, labor advocates, and former employees rallied behind her. People started talking. More former staff came forward with similar stories of underpayment and mistreatment. Boycotts followed. Local suppliers cancelled contracts. The store's already fragile reputation crumbled in a matter of weeks. 3 months later, Morgan's Market closed its doors for good. Jessica never walked back through them. She didn't need to. Her justice came not just in dollars, but in truth. And in the silence that followed, when the people who once used her realized the world had finally heard her voice. Do you think Jessica was right to take down the very people who used and abandoned her? Or should she have just moved on with her life? Let me know what you think in the comments. I'd really love to hear your thoughts. And if you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss one.